picture this. You're standing right in the middle of the dog food aisle at your local pet store.
Oh, yeah, the classic wall of choices.
Exactly. It's essentially this giant canyon of brightly colored bags just stretching out in both directions. And you've got these labels screaming, ancestral or grain-free, wilderness blend, optimal performance, and, oh, human grade.
Right, which sounds great, but it's overwhelming.
It's totally overwhelming. You're just staring at all these marketing buzzwords, wondering what actually dictates the long-term biological health of your dog and what is just a highly optimized psychological trick designed to empty your wallet.
Well, I mean, the pet food industry is a multi-billion-dollar machine, right?
Right.
And it relies heavily on anthropomorphism. They are marketing the food to our human sensibilities, not to actual canine physiology.
Which leaves most owners basically navigating a medical minefield without a map.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that is the mission of our deep dive today. We have a really robust stack of source material detailed veterinary transcripts that focus heavily on clinical nutrition and breed-specific pathophysiology.
Lots of heavy science in these.
Right. So we are going to strip away the marketing noise and uncover the specific nutritional science required to maintain one incredibly high-energy, physiologically unique breed. We're talking about the boxer.
A fantastic breed, but man, they have specific needs.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core premise from our sources fundamentally reframes how we look at the dog bowl. Feeding a boxer isn't just about caloric intake. It's this highly technical process of providing raw building blocks for a deeply specialized physical blueprint.
Yeah, and to understand the biological demands of that blueprint, we actually have to look back to the 1800s in Germany.
Wait, really? The 1800s?
Yeah, so the boxer was essentially engineered from a now extinct mastiff type called the Bullenbeißer.
The Bullenbeißer, okay.
Right, and these were elite working animals bred for a single, very dangerous purpose, which was hunting wild boar and bear.
Wow.
And their role wasn't just to track the animal. Their role was to catch and physically hold a massive, thrashing wild animal in place until the hunters actually arrived.
I mean, the torque and the sheer structural integrity required to pin down a wild boar, that's staggering.
It's immense. It requires a profound amount of fast-twitch muscle fiber, incredible jaw strength, and a skeletal system that's capable of absorbing massive kinetic shock.
Right.
And if you bring that forward to today, the boxer sleeping upside down on your sofa, it possesses that exact same musculoskeletal architecture.
So the biological machinery hasn't downgraded just because the job description changed to, fetching tennis balls.
Exactly.
Right.
When we analyze their nutrition, we are calculating the fuel requirements for a high-performance athlete that is basically trapped in a modern domestic lifestyle.
So if the dog on the sofa is essentially a piece of high-end athletic equipment, we have to figure out how to properly assemble that machine from day one.
Day one, yeah. Puppyhood.
Right, let's look at puppyhood, because our sources highlight a massive paradox in how owners feed boxer puppies. The data suggests the absolute worst thing you can do is try to maximize their growth speed.
Which is where a lot of people mess up.
Well, wait, that makes no sense to me. I mean, if the boxer's entire genetic purpose is explosive power and muscular density, wouldn't I want to fuel them up to grow as big and strong as possible, as fast as possible? It feels like you're shortchanging a sports car.
I know, it seems super counterintuitive until you look at the actual biomechanics of canine skeletal development.
Okay, how so?
So, in medium-large breeds, like the boxer, the long bones of the legs grow from these soft, cartilaginous areas. They're called epiphyseal plates, or growth plates.
Right.
And these plates remain soft and incredibly vulnerable for months before they finally calcify and fuse into solid bone.
Oh, I see. So if you pump the puppy full of high-calorie, nutrient-dense food, the muscle mass and the overall body weight increase way faster than the cartilage can calcify.
Exactly. And the physics there become destructive. You end up with this heavy, rapidly expanding muscular chassis just pressing down on soft, immature structural supports.
Ouch.
Yeah, that sheer downward force warps the growth plates. It directly triggers developmental orthopedic diseases, things like hip dysplasia, osteochondrosis, and elbow dysplasia.
So a leaner, slower-growing puppy avoids that whole skeletal crisis.
Precisely. You want controlled, linear growth. You never want maximum exponential growth.
Which means portion control and feeding frequency aren't just about digestions. They're like structural safety measures.
Yes, absolutely structural.
And the sources outline a pretty specific protocol for this, right? 3 to 4 small meals a day for young puppies, tapering down to 2 meals by 6 months.
Yeah, because breaking up those meals prevents sudden spikes in blood glucose.
Right.
And physically, it stops a heavy, distended stomach from pulling on the surrounding ligaments while the dog is still growing.
Hmm.
It basically prevents a massive metabolic load from overwhelming their immature gastrointestinal tract all at once.
Okay, so that sets the foundation for how they grow. But formulating the actual fuel puts us right back to that overwhelming canyon of bags at the store.
The marketing minefield.
Right. And the baseline metric you see everywhere is complete and balanced. But from a veterinary standpoint, that phrase is an actual physiological guarantee, right? Not just a marketing slogan.
Exactly. When a diet legally meets the regulatory standards for complete and balanced, it means the calcium to phosphorus ratios, the amino acid profiles, and the micronutrient densities have all been formulated to sustain specific metabolic functions.
Without needing any outside supplements.
Right. The baseline is secured, but the danger actually lies in the premium marketing trends that get layered on top of that baseline.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's examine the most dominant trend of the last decade, which is grain-free diets.
Oh boy, yeah.
You walk down the aisle, and the packaging heavily implies that a grain-free, wild ancestor diet is the ultimate biological choice. But our veterinary sources present a terrifying counter-narrative, particularly for boxers.
Yeah, the marketing narrative really pushed this idea that grains were cheap fillers causing allergies. Even though veterinary dermatology shows that environmental allergens or specific animal proteins like chicken or beef are far more common triggers.
Right.
But the pivot to grain-free introduced this severe unintended consequence. To replace the grains, manufacturers heavily utilized legumes, so peas, lentils, chickpeas, as their carbohydrate sources.
And this is where the heart issues come in.
Yes. Veterinary cardiologists are currently investigating a very strong associative link between these high legume diets and dilated cardiomyopathy, or DCM.
And the mechanics of DCM are just brutal. I mean, the heart muscle literally dilates, right? The walls stretch out, they become razor thin, and they basically lose their ability to pump blood.
Exactly. It essentially leads straight to congestive heart failure.
Wow.
The working hypothesis right now is that high concentrations of legumes act as anti-nutritional factors. They might actually bind to crucial amino acids in the gut, like taurine or its precursors, preventing the dog from absorbing them at all.
So without those amino acids, the myocardium, the heart muscle, just physically degrades.
Just wastes away.
And this is where the boxer's specific genetic profile turns this dietary trend into a potential death sentence. Because boxers already carry a well-documented genetic predisposition for cardiomyopathies.
Very much so. They are highly susceptible to arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy, which is often just called boxer cardiomyopathy, as well as DCM.
So their cardiac architecture is already vulnerable.
Exactly. If you feed a high legume, grain-free diet to a boxer, you are taking a dog with a genetic loaded weapon and handing them an environmental trigger.
That is terrifying.
It is. It's a compounding risk factor that should honestly never be introduced without strict guidance from a board-certified veterinary cardiologist.
Well, that entirely dismantles the marketing myth. Which brings up the other extreme from the sources, the raw food movement.
Oh, yes. The appeal to nature fallacy is really strong with this one.
I mean, I get it. Owners want to feed raw meat, assuming it just bypasses all the commercial processing risks entirely.
Sure, and proponents argue for higher bioavailability of nutrients and, improved stool quality. But from a clinical perspective, creating a genuinely complete and balanced raw diet at home is mathematically grueling.
Right, because of the minerals.
Yes. It is remarkably easy to disrupt that delicate calcium to phosphorus ratio. And we just discussed what happens to a boxer's growth plates when their structural minerals are out of balance.
The bone warping.
Exactly. Furthermore, the documented risk of bacterial shedding, Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, is a severe biohazard.
Wait, shedding? Like they pass it on?
Yeah. The dog might process the bacteria fine, but they shed it in their feces and their saliva, which contaminates the human household.
So you are effectively weaponizing your dog's saliva in a house where your kids might be, like, playing on the floor.
Exactly. It's a massive public health risk for the family.
Okay, so let's assume the owner navigates the science, selects a balanced, grain-inclusive diet, and meticulously measures the portions. You still have to deal with the psychological warfare of a boxer staring at you like it hasn't eaten in a month.
Oh, the boxer stare? It's intense.
It's pure operant conditioning. I mean, they aren't starving. They just realize that begging is a slot machine.
Right.
They pull the lever with those deep, sad eyes, and they know, eventually, a jackpot is going to drop.
That's a great way to put it. Boxers possess incredibly high prey drive and extreme food motivation.
Right?
Evolutionarily, dogs are opportunistic scavengers. Their brains are hardwired to consume calories whenever they are available just to survive some future famine.
Oh, that makes sense.
So when a boxer begs, you are witnessing an expressive, attention-seeking bonding behavior driven by instinct. They want the interaction with you, and food just happens to be the highest value currency.
But interpreting that instinctual scavenging drive as biological hunger
Right.
is what leads directly to chronic overfeeding.
Yes.
Every single time. And with a breed as intelligent as the boxer, you rely heavily on positive reinforcement for training, right? Which means you are constantly dispensing calories.
Right, you're treating them all day. So how does an owner balance the behavioral need for rewards with the metabolic reality of their daily caloric budget?
You leverage frequency over volume.
Frequency over volume.
Yeah. The dog's brain registers the chemical dopamine hit of receiving a reward. It does not register the total gram weight of that reward.
Oh, so a tiny piece works just as well.
Exactly. A microscopic piece of a low-calorie treat reinforces the behavior just as effectively as handing them a massive biscuit.
That's a great hack.
And alternatively, you can just deduct, say, 10% of their daily kibble allowance in the morning, put it in a pouch, and use their actual baseline diet as the training currency.
So you force them to work for their maintenance calories.
Exactly. It doesn't add any bonus calories to their day.
Now, we also have to address the ultimate jackpot, the dinner table.
The dangerous zone.
Right. You already know the fatal toxins like onions, grapes, xylitol, chocolate. But the sources highlight the insidious danger is the seemingly safe human food. You know, a piece of cheese or a scrap of unseasoned chicken. It feels like a harmless bonding moment. It feels harmless, but it destroys their macronutrient balance. Human foods are exponentially more calorically dense than canine physiology is adapted to process casually.
Give me an example.
Okay. A single ounce of cheddar cheese given to a medium-sized dog. That is the caloric equivalent of a human eating a full double cheeseburger as a snack between meals.
A double cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Just from an ounce of cheese.
Yes. It floods their system with excess fats.
Yeah.
And that can trigger acute pancreatitis, which is a massive, extremely painful inflammation of the pancreas.
Oh, wow.
And even if it doesn't cause pancreatitis, it absolutely guarantees a caloric surplus.
Which brings us perfectly to the metabolic reality of the breed, because we have this image of boxers as perpetual motion machines, just constantly bouncing off the wall.
They are very springy.
Very springy. And I look at that energy output, and I assume they just incinerate whatever calories they consume. I mean, they must naturally burn it all off, right?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that assumption is exactly why veterinary clinics are filled with obese boxers.
Ugh.
Yeah. Kinetic energy does not equal a limitless metabolic rate. Their basal metabolic rate. So the calories they burn just existing shifts drastically over their lifespan. And owners rarely adjust the input to match that declining output.
And the sources say the most dramatic drop happens right after spaying or neutering, right?
Huge drop. The removal of gonadal hormones completely alters their endocrine system. Their basal metabolic requirement drops by roughly 20 to 30%, almost immediately following the procedure.
30%. But I imagine their appetite doesn't drop.
Not at all. Because the dog's appetite remains fiercely strong, owners just continue feeding the pre-surgery volume, and that surplus is instantly converted to adipose tissue.
Fat.
Yep, packing on the pounds.
So if we can't trust the dog's appetite, and the scale on the floor is deceptive because, muscle weighs more than fat, how do we actually track their physical state?
You rely on the body condition score or the BCS?
BCS, okay.
It's a physical, tactile assessment you can do at home. You run your palms flat along the dog's rib cage. You should feel the individual ribs immediately, under just a thin, smooth layer of skin, without having to apply pressure through a layer of fat.
Okay, so you should feel them easily.
Right. And then, from above, there must be a sharp, defined indentation, a waist right behind the ribs. And from the side profile, the abdomen must tuck upward toward the groin.
So no barrel shapes allowed.
Exactly. The moment you lose the physical sensation of the ribs, the dog is overweight.
And carrying excess adipose tissue on a frame that was engineered for explosive movement that just destroys their joints.
Destroys the joints and forces that vulnerable heart we talked about to work in overdrive.
Man. Now, how does that metabolic calculus change at the extremes of their lifespan? I mean, comparing the highly active agility dogs to the seniors whose deepest daily activity is just moving from the couch to the sunbeam on the rug.
Right, it's very different. Working dogs engaged in high-intensity sports genuinely require a higher caloric density and specific amino acid profiles to repair microscopic muscle tears.
Makes sense.
But those performance diets are heavily marketed and very often misused by owners whose dogs only, play fetch for 20 minutes a day.
Right.
The senior dog, however, presents a really complex challenge. As their thyroid activity and overall movement decline, their caloric needs absolutely drop.
So you just cut their food in half to keep them thin?
No, and that is a critical error a lot of people make. As dogs age, they naturally experience sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle wasting.
Oh, like humans.
Exactly like humans. So to combat that physiological degradation, their requirement for highly digestible premium protein actually remains steady or even increases.
Wait, so they need fewer calories but more protein.
Yes. You have to reduce the overall caloric density, which is usually done by cutting fats and carbohydrates while strictly maintaining that amino acid intake.
Which naturally triggers the human impulse to supplement, right? We think, oh, if my senior dog needs protein and joint support, I'll just pour a high-protein topper over their food and maybe add some calcium powders.
Which is a terrible idea.
Why?
Because you are artificially overwriting that complete and balanced formulation we talked about earlier. If you indiscriminately add protein or mineral supplements to a diet that already meets their requirements, you stress the kidneys, you disrupt the calcium to phosphorus ratio, and you can actually accelerate joint degradation or cause urinary crystals.
So you're breaking the baseline.
You're breaking the math. Unless a veterinarian is actively managing a diagnosed deficiency or prescribing specific chondroprotectants for osteoarthritis, the bowl should remain totally untampered with.
Okay, so we've decoded the chemistry of the food, the shifting metabolism, all of that. But our sources dedicate a significant amount of data to a danger entirely unrelated to the ingredients.
The eating process itself.
Right. With a boxer, the literal physical mechanics of how they consume their food can trigger a catastrophic medical emergency. They are notorious for eating like industrial vacuum.
They just inhale it, and it's a behavioral quirk with a deadly physiological consequence.
Break that down for us.
So when a deep-chested dog eats rapidly, they aerophagia, which means they swallow massive volumes of ambient air right along with the unchewed kibble.
And because of the boxer's anatomical structure, that deep, narrow thoracic cavity, the stomach isn't just resting on a flat surface, right? It's suspended by ligaments, kind of like a hammock.
Exactly, a hammock.
Yeah.
Now imagine that suspended hammock heavily loaded with dense kibble, water, and expanding gas from all that swallowed air.
Oh boy.
If the dog engages in vigorous physical activity shortly after eating, that heavy, distended stomach begins to swing like a pendulum, and the momentum can cause the entire stomach to flip on its axis, rotating 180 to 360 degrees.
Just completely twisting around.
Yes. This is gastric dilatation volvulus, or GDV, commonly known as bloat.
And the mechanics of GDV are just terrifying. Once it twists, it seals off both the entrance and the exit of the stomach, right?
Completely blocked.
So the gas continues to expand, inflating the stomach like a balloon, which presses against the diaphragm, basically suffocating the dog.
It's awful. And worse, the twisting pinches off the caudal vena cava, which is the major vein returning blood to the heart.
Oh my God.
The blood pressure plummets, plunging the dog into hypovolemic shock, while the stomach tissue actually begins to necrose or die from lack of blood flow. It is fatal without immediate surgical intervention.
Which is why managing the speed of ingestion is not optional for this breed.
Not at all. It's mandatory.
And the physics basically dictate the prevention, right?
Mm-hmm.
You use slow feeder bowls with physical barriers that force the dog to extract the kibble slowly, or you utilize puzzle toys. Or you simply scatter the meal or divide it into multiple tiny portions so you prevent that hammock from ever getting overloaded in the first place.
Exactly. Keep the loads small.
But the mechanics of eating also include hydration, which brings us to another specific anatomical flaw of the boxer.
Yeah, their face. Boxers are a brachycephalic breed.
Meaning the pushed-in nose.
Right. Through selective breeding, their maxilla, the upper jaw, has been shortened, pushing the whole nasal cavity inward. And dogs rely entirely on panting for thermoregulation.
Right, they don't sweat like we do.
No. When they pant, moisture evaporates from the complex nasal turbinates, cooling the blood before it circulates back to the brain and the body.
But because their muzzle is compressed, they have drastically less surface area for that evaporative cooling to actually occur.
They are deeply, deeply inefficient at dissipating heat. To compensate, a boxer will pant harder and faster, rapidly evaporating their internal moisture reserves.
And because of their high drive, they'll just ignore their own biological distress signals to keep playing.
They won't stop, and this leads to hemoconcentration. Their blood literally thickens as they lose water, and they can crash into severe dehydration and heat stroke with terrifying speed. So as an owner, you must monitor their gums for moisture and check their skin elasticity to ensure they are adequately hydrated. It's on you to stop the game.
Bringing this all together, the sources highlight a few systemic, everyday errors that owners make that undermine all of this careful planning. And the most common one is free feeding. Just, filling a massive bowl and leaving it on the floor all day.
Which is so common, but free feeding entirely blinds you to the dog's internal state.
Because you can't tell when to eat.
Right. A sudden drop in appetite is very often the very first clinical indicator of gastrointestinal distress, tick-borne disease, or even cancer.
Oh, wow.
If the bowl is always full, you completely miss that critical early warning metric. And of course, it makes accurate caloric tracking impossible.
The second error they mentioned is the casual scoop. Eyeballing the portion instead of using a standardized measuring cup or a digital kitchen scale.
Yeah, a 10% overage in a scoop doesn't look like much to the human eye. But compounded over 365 days, it results in profound, joint-crushing weight gain. The margin of error is incredibly small.
And finally, the abrupt dietary shift. When owners just pour a completely different brand of food into the bowl because, they ran out of the old one.
Yeah, the canine microbiome, the bacterial ecosystem in their gut, is highly adapted to process the specific macronutrient profile of their current diet.
So the sudden change just shocks the system.
It overwhelms those bacteria. A sudden influx of novel proteins or different carbohydrate structures leads to massive osmotic diarrhea and severe gastrointestinal inflammation. Any transition requires a methodical 7 to 10 day blending process to allow the microbiome to slowly adapt.
Okay, so what does this all mean? We started out staring at a chaotic canyon of marketing buzzwords, completely overwhelmed. But distilling the veterinary data changes the entire paradigm.
It really does.
Feeding a boxer isn't just a daily chore on a checklist. It is a deeply deliberate, calculated investment in honoring their evolutionary architecture. It's the precise science of fueling an ancestral athlete so they can thrive in a modern world, giving them the longest, healthiest life possible right by your side.
Absolutely. The nutrition is the biochemical foundation, but it must seamlessly integrate with consistent cardiovascular exercise, mental enrichment, and vigilant weight management. They're inextricably linked.
Hand in hand.
And, as always, this deep dive is an exploration of the biological data because every dog possesses unique physiological variables. Your primary resource for specific health protocols should always be a direct consultation with your veterinarian.
Right. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as we wrap up today. We have just spent this entire deep dive realizing that to keep a modern, couch-lounging dog healthy, we have to meticulously honor the physical blueprint of its wild boar hunting ancestors. We go to extraordinary lengths to calculate amino acids, monitor growth plates, and match the fuel to their original biological machinery.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder if we recognize the absolute necessity of matching a dog's modern lifestyle to its evolutionary design. How well are we doing that for ourselves?
That's a great question.
Are our own modern, highly processed diets and our sedentary routines systematically failing to honor the complex athletic machinery that human beings were originally built with? Think about that next time you're staring down the grocery aisle. Catch you on the next deep dive.